Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 69 of Get Out of Rap. Today, I'm joined by Rob Wilkinson. Me and Rob first, good product placement for those watching on YouTube. Thanks, Rob. Rob just used the Get Out of Rap flask that all the guests get. I first came aware of Rob, like a lot of people, I think, looking at call center helper, and you were twice. I think we'll dip into this if I've got it wrong. Second or in the top, definitely top 5 of most respected people in the contact center industry.
Yeah,
And we met and we spoke, and we've been in touch ever since. It's long overdue, but Rob Wilkinson, welcome to Get Out of Rap.
thank you very much for having me. No, it's like stepping into the telly. It's very strange.
It is. I still don't get used to it. I could have gone on for ages with your introduction, but that kind of you'd have been sat there going, okay, when's my bit?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I suppose I've done a few. I've had a few bits of experience throughout the time, but I guess getting those acknowledgements back in the day, it was quite a surreal time anyway. But they keep appearing again, and people bring it up and say, I remember you did this and you did that. Oh, you're the guy who did that. And so I suppose I've got a lot to thank that period for. And yeah, I can certainly kind of talk a little bit about those 2 times at some point if you'd like me to go through that.
Yeah, definitely. I want to do the rewind. Where did this all start for you? So you are absolute evangelical subject matter expert. You love contact centers, but where did this journey start for you?
Okay, so late 90s. I won't put a definite year on it to give my youthful looks away or anything. So late 90s, made my first phone call. I don't know if you would call it a contact center if you compare it to today, because it was literally a bank of desks, a load of landlines, and a load of white pages, which were the business pages back in the day.
I think that classes it, doesn't it? Some people have asked me that actually about it. Is me and my 5 friends that have set this thing up, is that a call center? So, yeah, it is.
I mean, it's people talking to customers, isn't it? It's just that was a sales. That was the first time I'd done any kind of sales. It was gas and electric market had just been kind of, is it demonopolized? I don't know what the word is.
Privatized?
Yeah, unprivatized.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when they knocked all the walls down and said you can sell it everywhere, because before, for the kids that don't know, you used to have to buy your electric off your local provider. You didn't have any other option. Clearly not the case anymore, but that was at the time brand new. So I got into this business to business. It was basically, I was setting appointments up for blokes in suits to go out in their cars and do the proper selling. And I got paid £1 for every appointment that I set up. On top of a basic salary, I'd say. Otherwise, I'd have to make all those appointments. And it was my first foray into using the phone to make money. It turned out I was all right at it and did okay, and managed to make a living out of it. And that was the starting point for me, because at that point, I'd never done anything like that. Quite the opposite, in fact. So that was my first foray. So, like I say, late 90s. Then something else that will be a blast from the past. But my next job after that was I moved to a proper contact center, big kind of operation with hundreds of people in it. And that was teletext from the teletext holidays.
Yes, I do.
So, and CFAX. So basically, again, for those that are too young that are listening, this was before, well, not before the internet, but before the internet was big. And you used to go onto the telly and you used to be able to see lists of holidays for £30 or something. And then you'd ring a phone number up to try and book it. And I would tell you that the only way you could book it is if you go from Luton, when you live in Manchester, at 3 a.m. On a specific date and fly back into Preston. Something like that. And then obviously I'd upsell you to other holidays. And so that was my kind of second job. And I did the usual kind of, the great thing with contact centers, which is you can progress. So that was the first time I got a taste for leadership and team management, and I worked my way up. But I was in my 20s, and the good thing about working for a company that do holidays is you can go on holidays, and you can also become a holiday rep. So I used to do both. So
Really?
call centres in the winter when the weather's crap, and then in the summer go abroad and actually be a holiday rep. I did that a couple of times. That was kind of like a great couple of years, and a fab company to work for. It was called My Travel back in the day. It used to be Air Tours. I don't know if you remember those names at all, but so I did the whole CFAX thing, teletext thing as another job. I actually met my wife while I was working abroad as well, my current wife. So we've been together for a lot of years again. and when I was actually her rep. She'll kill me for saying that on a podcast, but yeah, I was actually her rep earlier today. So you could say that that if it wasn't for working in a call centre, I wouldn't have met my wife. Very, true.
Yes, I love it. And will work was the My Travel, were they flexible enough to keep welcoming you back? Was that kind of a normal thing, or?
Yeah, people did it. Lots of people did it the other way around, weirdly. So some people would go and they'd work during the summer in the call centre in the UK, and then they'd go and do ski seasons over the winter and be the reps over in the ski resorts because they were into the skiing. So it was total normal. Yeah, and they obviously, because they had that ability to do that, they just had flexible working and made it work and accommodated that. If you think about it as well, there's no one better to sell a holiday than someone who spends half their time there as well. So there was an argument for that as being a good reason to support it. And even back then, which is 20 years ago more, contact centres and call centres were very about people, all about people, always have been. And that's that a good example. There was lots of bad examples of contact centres around those times. The whole battery hen perception of people being plugged in and have to put a hand up to go to the toilet. I'm really lucky that I never found that situation for me, but I had heard about it. So yeah, but that was great, and that was a really cool and exciting couple of years.
It's a shame, isn't it, that think about all the time you've been in contact centres, same as me. That battery head perception, you've never come across it. I haven't, in terms of it, the perception matching the reality. But that very first step into the contact centre that you made, was that driven from necessity? Was it a shock? What was that kind of appointment setting? As a young man, you go into it and you're like, okay.
So obviously, like I said, I'd never done anything like that before. And it's probably important to give you a little bit of a my first job, if you like. So I left home quite young, and I left school. I got enough to do a few GCSEs, but certainly nothing that I should have done if I'd have done what I was capable of doing. And all of that comes around to some stuff around my family life and my home life and stuff which I won't bore everyone with. But I found myself in quite tricky situations as a result of being quite young and out on my own. And I managed to get myself into debt, and I did a little bit of trouble and drank a lot more than I should have done. And then I found myself in a situation where I was actually classed as homeless. Now, it sounds worse than I thought it was at the time. I was sofa surfing. So, and that's the thing that we didn't call it back then. I was just crashing at my mates' houses because nowhere else would have me. But literally, I didn't have the place that I could call home, and I had to live out of a bag and the boot of a car. And then, so that I ended up actually to a point where I didn't have a job, and I was living in a bed and breakfast, and that was kind of my low point. And that was the time where I had to make a choice. So I was given options where I could go and work in a bakery delivering buns for minimum wage, or I could get something out of myself and go and sort myself out. So I had a bit of a moment, a bit of a wake-up call, and realised that I didn't want to earn minimum wage. I've always been a bit more ambitious than that. And I'm a big believer in my own capabilities. So I grabbed something else that will be another one for the kids, but a paper, an actual newspaper. And I went to the classifieds in the back of the newspaper, and I read it on my bed in my bedsit. And there was a job in the next town over that would have been a few short bus ride away for telesales agents. And that's how I got into it. I don't think anybody says when I grow up I want to run a contact centre. Some might nowadays. I hope they do nowadays.
Yeah, I hope so.
But back then, certainly, you didn't. And I've always been told I had gift of the gab by everybody from like very young. So I decided that I'd give this a go. Anyway, I went in and I got asked what experience I had, and my response was, and I guess this is where sometimes I'm honest to a fault. My response was a really crap experience. Actually, I'm homeless, and it was kind of like there was this like that wasn't what they were expecting me to say. And I remember her name, Michelle Fish, was the lady who was interviewing me, and she was intrigued and dug a little bit deeper. I was very forthcoming, and after a short period of time, she said, "Yeah, come and join us, and we'll take a chance on you." So yeah, not look back really, and that was how I got into it all. So it came from a very negative place really, but someone gave me a chance, and this is what I think I go on about, and I go back to a lot when people talk to me about contact centres. For me, that has saved my life. I mean, that I could have channeled all that energy in the wrong ways. I could have been turned down. I could have not been given the opportunity, but I found something in the middle of all that crap that I was going through that I was good at, and I was able to apply myself to. And this was something I probably should have done many years before. I just didn't have the kind of people around me to make sure that I was channeling things in the right way. But as soon as I started to do that, I started to enjoy life a little bit, and that's kind of why I've got a lot to thank contact centres for.
I love that. That's actually giving me goosebumps. I love that, because knowing what you've gone on to do since, it's just amazing, mate. I think as well, it points to your point about the unique opportunities that contact centres give people from all walks of life. I can remember running an outbound sales team, and I'd like to think that when I say we, I mean the industry in general, as evidenced by your story, was ahead of the curve in terms of we hired for personality. So I can remember speaking to our HR department, and we started off with a test team for an outbound sales operation. We had like 10 in the team, and it was to prove a concept, because we previously outsourced all of our outbound. So this was going to be the first inbound team. The team of 10, they were great. All your usual characters that you get in a team. And we proved a point, and then we had, looking back now, a ridiculous ramp of people from 10 to over 100 in 3 months, 4 months, something like that, where it was people were bursting. We were close to breakdown, just because it was continual and changing incentive plans. Anyway, I'll never forget, and I'm still in touch with him, a guy, very similar to yourself, he'd lost a job as a door-to-door utilities sales sign up, and HR came and said, "Can you come and speak to us about this guy, and maybe even come and see him, because he's practically illiterate." And just getting to talk to this guy, he'd had such a tough background, but he just had a great personality. He really wanted a chance. He, no polished interview technique at all, was just raw and authentic. Yeah. Much, that kind of comment that you made, some of the things that he said,
unfiltered.
Yeah.
Truth. Yeah.
But I was just kind of maybe thinking, right, we're going to have to do something about the effing and jeffing, because that's not going to work. But when this guy says, "Give me an effing chance," I need it. It's going to change my life. And then it was a privilege to be in the same team as this guy, to see what he did. Obviously, there's a lot of work from team leaders, training teams, but now Again, textbook story. Now he is in one of the support functions. It was workforce management. Now I think it's finance. He's a manager. He met his wife. He's got kids. All of this because of contact centers and recruiting for personality. Actually taking the time to sit and try and get to know someone and think, is this person going to be a good fit? And I love our industry for that.
It's I don't know if there's another industry that creates that sort of, not just the initial opportunity, which, you know, it obviously has, you know, sales, service, there's loads of ways of getting your foot in the door, but the nurturing environment, hopefully. And I mean, I there are stories from back in the day that we've already touched on around, you know, negative contact center practices, and in any industry you get a kind of range of quality in terms of,
yeah, of course,
the types of places that you find and the way they work, but ultimately there are some very supportive and very nurturing environments that you can find yourself, certainly in comparison to a lot of industries. Even I think when we don't get it great in contact centers, we still do a lot more and a lot better than some industries do, and certainly nowadays it's far more the norm that you will actually find a very comprehensive structure to onboarding and nurturing people and building careers and giving opportunities and secondments and all that kind of stuff. So I think there isn't another sector that you could really say does the same, has the same opportunity and way of working, and that gives people a foot in the door to go off and do other stuff. I know from hiring lots of different people over the years that people sometimes get into contact centers because they want to work for that company. They don't necessarily want to be on the phones, but they want to work in marketing, and they see that as a great way of getting in there. Or even people who want to work in finance or even legal. I mean, to cut your teeth within a business in some way to get to know the customers stands you in great stead for whatever role. And I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about it. And I think that's, yeah, I'm a massive advocate of it as an opportunity for people. And, you know, when I stopped being a bit holiday repish and found the love of my life and came home, I then had to get a job again, a proper job, because we didn't live anywhere near each other. So I went to what I knew, and I found contact centers. So I went to work for a telecoms company. I won't drop brands in, but this was my real kind of development role. So I started on the phones, no danger, back on the phone selling, outbound retention, the really kind of hardcore bite in the next 10 seconds or I'm going to hang up on you type thing, back in the day. And basically very quickly got a team manager's job after a few months, and that turned into a secondment into business change and process improvement, which for me was just like I'd found this thing that I was really great at. And at the time, it was purely to give me exposure to the broader business because I was ambitious. I was saying, I want the next role. I've got my manager's job. I want to get the next thing. And they were like, well, you need to calm down a bit because you've got no idea how everything works. You know, there's kind of, when you get that level, you need to understand everything that feeds into it. You need to have relationships with people in those other departments and all that kind of stuff.
Whoa there, Tiger.
Yeah, one of those, like, yeah. In fact, the guy who gave me the team manager's job actually said to me that something that you just said before. He said that you're like a rough diamond, and we're really looking forward to helping you. And that's something you don't get told when you start new jobs. Anyway, sidetracked. So yeah, I did this comment into business change and process improvement, and it was Six Sigma, and it was quite new. I've never been academically inclined, I call it, but when I can put something into practice and apply it, I'm good. And this was me basically just learned. This was there was about a 9 to 12 month period where I really had my eyes open to how operations work. And I was in a big business as well. So there was really good opportunity to get into some really meaty projects and to really understand how the amount of value you can actually add by making efficiency savings here, there and everywhere. So I did that, really enjoyed it. And then I was like, right, okay, where's my next job then? And it was basically, I had to go to another company because our company was recruiting from external, bringing new talent in. And I just decided that I'll be that new talent and I'll go somewhere else and I'll take the stuff I've learned here somewhere else to progress my career and look after me, which I did. But unfortunately, I got made redundant about 12 months later. And that was running I was the head of contact centres for a customer service operation, managing a contract for another telecoms company. And, this had all happened super fast. I'd gone from being on the phone to running a multi-site operation within several years, with a stint of business change in the middle. But I kind of felt that I knew everything. So my ego was a lot bigger back then. I'm a lot more realistic nowadays. But I saw it as an opportunity to put myself out there. So I spoke to a couple of the directors that used to be at the original teleco company that gave me loads of opportunity. And they'd actually recently moved on to other things. And they gave me opportunities to go in there and do a bit of day rate consultancy, kind of like, come in and have a look, tell us what you think you'd do to make things better. And I spent a few days in there, reported back, and then that turned into opportunity to spend a few months in those places and do some work there. And that was the start of my consultancy. So I basically set up my own company doing that, which was, I call them MOTs for contact centres, with my hopefully strong understanding of the different roles in contact centres, combined with how they kind of operate and the technical side of it and how they function and how the processes work, through to being able to engage people to do things differently. Found it just kind of like a natural thing to go in, talk to loads of people, find out, get under the skin of stuff, put in a plan to make some improvements, and then help people to do those improvements. And that was what I did. That worked very well. And I built a business around that lasted a number of years, and that was fantastic. And that was me living the dream at that point, because I'd always kind of wanted to be my own boss, but I'd never really understood how I could go about doing it. So again, even though it's not really about the whole call center job thing, it's the spin-off of that, the stuff I learned, the abilities that I built, and the opportunities that people then gave me, that I built a network in the contact center sector just off like former bosses getting me in there. And that was my consultancy, doing contact center consulting. There was a moment there where we had a client that was needing to improve their recruitment approach, and we built a model and approach that worked for them. And then I realized there was quite a few clients that didn't like the traditional recruitment approach. This is frontline, so agent level stuff, kind of purely the kind of volume piece. There was a feel from a lot of people that if you work with an agency, they throw mud and hope it sticks, almost like lots of numbers through the door, not really a lot of quality focus. And again, being a little bit cocky and arrogant, I said, well, I'll change all this. I'll come up with a way of doing it that's better. And I kind of did. And I kind of had a couple of companies that liked it. I changed the pricing model, which made a bit of a no-brainer, and gave me some reasonable cash flow. And then very quickly, I was building the team up. So I brought a manager in, and then we built a team around her, and that was kind of 5 people. And this lasted a 3-year period of running a rather different approach to recruitment on top of the consultancy stuff that I was doing myself. And it was during that time that we were doing some sort of crazy stuff, like we were providing free training courses to candidates, because that was where I thought we needed to do the quality piece. We also supplied the same stuff to the contact centers, the clients, so that when they were onboarding people, they could use that stuff. It helped us make sure that the caliber of the candidates was really strong, but that they were supported and nurtured and all the rest of it through that process. And then it meant that when they got in there, induction, to make a Channel 4 program's slogan and change it ever so slightly, meant that people were staying as well. So we were reducing attrition. And that was the period of time where John T was very welcoming and letting me get in call center helper and do kind of webinars. I was doing forums, all of them. I think I used to annoy Sandra and Trevor and Anne-Marie all the time, banging on the door, offering them free stuff, which they loved and got me out to do, and it worked. But it gave me a load of, again, more exposure to so many different contexts. That's kind of a total of 6 years of consulting and doing that recruitment work. I must have spent time with over 100 contact centers, easy. because I judged awards and all that kind of stuff as well. So you kind of get to see all of that. And that just gave me such a broad perspective of the different levels of things and the different ways of working. And it was such an enjoyable period of time. And I kind of felt that by giving back, by doing loads of the content and the webinars and all that kind of stuff, I mean, there was a selfish part of it, which was to raise my profile in order to, for the business to be, to succeed, of course. I won't pretend that it was anything else, but there was also an opportunity to give stuff back into the community. And that, I mean, even 2 days ago, I got someone on LinkedIn posted a thank you for that post you made, that content, because I had homework from my contact center to go and come back with this, like these, I think it was different types of questioning techniques. This is a training piece that we were using back in the day, and I put it all over my LinkedIn profile 8-9 years ago, and someone literally a few days ago, I still get stuff like that now. Thank you for showing such great content and stuff, and you're kind of like, awesome. That's cool. So yeah, that's the time when I think when the most respected stuff was being done. John T would go out and invite people to nominate, and then there'd be a list of 100 or so people, and they'd be voted on. It was kind of, I heard that someone had put me forward for it, which was great. That for me was brilliant. That was in the mix with all this stuff. I mean, I'm a bit of I have imposter syndrome throughout this whole period. Partly, I think, from where I come from. Also, the speed at which stuff has happened to me, I kind of don't really buy it. And I'm 8 years on from winning those things, and I still think it's the same thing. I still have the same thoughts. But yeah, these awards came up, and the first one was 2012. And you've got in first place was Anne-Marie Stagg, obviously. In second place, I think it was Carolyn Blunt, and then third place, Martin Hill Wilson. Might not have been that exact 1, 2, or 3. I should know that. That's probably naughty that I don't. I was fourth. I mean, fourth. With those 3 names in front of you, you just go, what? Yeah, so that was my mind was blown. And when you read all the stuff, it was all around the content that I put out there. So I guess you could argue that the audience that was voting was very familiar with me at the time. But nonetheless, it's quite cool. And I was certainly very happy and grateful. And I milked it for all it was worth in terms of raising my profile, of course, at the time.
Of course, you've got to.
That helped me open a lot of doors. But do you know what? That was the one thing about that wasn't great, was that if you're in the top 100, all you got was kudos. So it was like you were on the list on the website, but you didn't get anything. Even if
no award.
Nothing. No. So John T used to kind of like do this thing, but he never gave you anything, which is fine. It's good to get acknowledgement.
Well, everyone wants a trophy, though. Something you can touch.
Did you know what I did?
You made it.
So I went through every single person in the top 50, I think, that came in, and I found their LinkedIn profiles, and I downloaded their LinkedIn photos, found out where they worked and the addresses of where they worked. And basically, I did a moon pig. So you can get the cards that say you're the best, like front page thing.
Yeah.
So I got one of those. You're the best, simply the best, better than all the rest. Something like that. Put the LinkedIn profile picture on it. Some of which were grainy as anything, because they're generally screen scratched. And then I wrote this article about how John T's kind of done all this good stuff, and that this person's done so well. And then got them sent out in frames, though, like not just the cards. I've got
That's
them all.
Lovely.
A handwritten letter with every single one of them, and sent them out to everyone saying, John T's a bit of a tight one. He'll kill me for that. Johnny's a bit not kind of giving us anything, so I thought I'd take it upon myself to do this. And you know what? That's another case of putting something out there at some point, doing something a little bit differently that comes back to kind of reward you. So I'm sure this isn't the reason I got one of my next jobs, but unfortunately for me, I focused too much on one part of that business, and after a couple of really poor quarters, and no new business coming in, and I had to make everyone redundant and close that business down. So I won't dwell on that.
That must have been tough.
It was the most devastating thing I've ever had to do. I cried. I won't pretend that I didn't, and I'm not talking about behind the scenes. I mean, I went into the office that I'd built, and to the team of people who had no idea it was coming. And it was only a small team, but do you know what, their reaction was amazing. I was really worried about how they were going to respond, and they were worried about me. So kind of like, which was different. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I wouldn't ever want to have to do that again. I learned an awful lot. And again, in hindsight, you reflect and you kind of, you think about where you went wrong, and there's lots of lessons learned coming out the other side of that. And I think I'm certainly more resilient, and it's given me a skill set that you can't learn doing anything else. And that's me trying to put a positive spin on things. But yeah, that was tough. It was the definitely the worst day in my life when I had to say that. And I've been through some tough crap in my own way a lot when I was a lot younger, but that was the horriblest thing to have to do, because these were people who I'd spent years knowing that I was responsible for their mortgage, or their rent, and I had to bring that in and make sure it got to them. And then I had to go there after doing that for a number of years to tell them I couldn't do it anymore. And that's what it was basically like. And because of the way the team was built and the kind of people that we hired, it was horrible, because they were really cool guys, and we were a great team. And no one likes to let the team down, do they? So
no.
But yeah,
it's like you say, and in fact, even if you go right back to the start of your journey, there's a lot to be said for what you gain from working in sales in terms of resilience, mentality, being able to you win or you learn, right? And I think that I thanks for sharing it, first of all, but similarly, I look back to some key moments in my career, and the things where I learned the most. There's definitely scarring. There's definitely it being horrible at the time, However, some of, like you say, the lessons I learned from, like you, standing in front of a room and letting 100 people, or about 70 people it was, who I'd specifically gone out and employed, gone and grabbed them for a startup that I was part of. We went into administration suddenly, and telling people, one guy was on his honeymoon, another had just bought a house, and even 6 months afterwards, I if somebody had said, you must have learned some lessons, I'd have said, I'll get lost.
Yeah, immediately.
This is raw. It's horrible. I felt terrible. Like you, people are kind. People are lovely. There were some angry reactions, but on the whole, people are just so kind and caring. I think that's our default, which is lovely. However, the lessons I think about now, and that's where I think partly some of the reason for this podcast, to tell you the truth, is wanting people at the early part of their career to learn from mentors that they might not get access to, like people like you. If they listen to this podcast, hopefully they'll gain something that will help them. Maybe not have to go learn the lesson, but not have to go through the hell that forges that lesson. So again, and our industry is great for that kind of, your activity of taking the time to write to people. Yeah, sure, it helps you because people will go, Rob's a nice guy, but you didn't have to do it. It meant you're making people feel good, and I think that's kind of more power to you, right? That's our industry in a nutshell.
100%.
There was a lot to unpack from what you said. I'm just kind of filtering through it now. The other thing that I really like that you said that I think people will resonate with is this concept of even at the point you are getting an award for or being recognized as one of the key influencers in the industry that you're part of, amongst the stars of the show, you're still thinking, me from Preston, imposter syndrome is fully in flight. I think the lesson there for people is pretty much everyone has it or has had it at some point.
I have grown to know this. Yeah, I mean, I only even got that phrase probably last year.
Yeah.
syndrome. It kind of, thankfully, mental health and stuff is really improving in terms of perception and willingness to talk about it. So I think the fact that there's a label for imposter syndrome that certainly I've only just come across, for me it was I felt like I was winging it for a very long time, and that I didn't deserve to be succeeding because I was kind of winging it, or it felt like I was winging it. It's only after, I think, a couple of tumbles and a couple of periods of time of reflection that you recognize that everyone's winging it, really, to one degree or another. Some people are willing to wing it more than others, and some people risk more, and that's okay. That's all good. It's healthy. It's important to understand that, though, because as soon as you realize that some of these people that you kind of maybe put up on a mantle, for want of a better phrase, it's not a negative thing. It's a good thing. It's good to have people who you aspire to be like and emanate and all that kind of stuff. Role models are important, but they're all dead normal human beings. I'm kind of carrying away a little here, but I'm doing that. I'm going through this as we speak, and I'll come on to it in a minute. But Martin Hill Wilson, who's on that list that I mentioned there, and was again in the next time around 2 years later. I'm doing stuff with him right now behind the scenes, and that's kind of like, for me, it's a weird moment. But he's definitely a human being, a very nice human being. But if you'd have told me 7 or 8 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, nah. I'd be like, really? But I'll come on to that, because there is a little gap to fill, though, because those things that I sent out. So fast forward a few years, my business has gone up the spout. I've got a baby on the way. My wife is very, very pregnant, and I have got nothing going on. And I think, no, she hadn't just lost a job, but it was very, very much a time where I could have done with
time.
I rang the guy up, Max Renstam. So basically, again, he was on the network. He was in all the forums. He was doing all the stuff that I was doing at the time. His voice of customer business, Bright. I gave him a call and I said, we've met a few times. He was similar to yourself. Been on the circuit, you might want to call it. Familiar, and I had the number in my phone, and I said to him, "Look, this is the score. The businesses we'd actually done a few collaborative projects and bits of marketing together. So it was not a cold call, but I said, do any of your clients, any of the contact centers you work with, do any of them, need someone like me with my skill set?" And he came back very kind of swiftly after a couple of days of speaking to his two directors, and said, "We'd like you to come and join us and help us to take Bright where we want to take it." He needed someone to help someone look after some of his clients, and it was kind of like karma is working in my favor again. Wonderful thing. And one of the great things was, one of the guys on that list who I'd always this guy set up the top 50 contact centers. Remember that?
I do.
So Simon Thorpe, again, another name that everybody knows in contact centers, and he was the sales director. And when I got hired, I went down and I was doing my induction, and he was straight over. He said, as soon as Matt said that you were looking for something, I said, we've got to get him in. He said, I was just like, oh, right, that's great. And I'm thinking, how do you know it? How did imposter syndrome?
I know nothing.
He turned around to me, he says, oh yeah, I've still got that photo you sent, that photo frame you sent me. I've still got it on my desk in the home office. And I was kind of like,
I love it.
Oh my God, right, okay. So that kind of, it's weird, isn't it? It's almost like you just kind of, you put stuff out there and it comes back. Karma's a wonderful thing. A big believer in it. LinkedIn Karma, you helped me out this year already. There's another example. So when I was having a bit of a rough time a few months ago, you took a call, let me whinge at you for an hour, and were there for me when I needed someone to bounce off, which was fab. Not long after that, a couple of months later, I saw a few posts that were around the British Airways problems that you were having, getting some money back for some cancelled flights for the girls in their the efforts to be world beaters and world champions. And it happened that I knew someone.
It's amazing. It's the power of connection.
It really is.
It's a power of everything happens in relationships. And I think your point about you just for me, the message I hear when you're talking and sharing is be a good person, but just keep going. You know, you put content out there, you did the thing with the awards, you kept going after the business. Just keep going. And it's interesting you say about kind of imposter syndrome. It is something that's come up quite a bit in this podcast. And behind the scenes, people will say, "Oh, how do you do it? How do you?" Are you nervous or anything like that? And I say, "Look, I still don't like hearing myself, seeing myself. Still don't quite know. It feels like you still don't quite know what you're doing, but ultimately, I like it, and I'm just going to keep going." And if one person listens, or 10,000, it doesn't really make any difference. I'm just going to keep going. And I think that's what I hear in your story, which outweighs the imposter syndrome. Like they're fleeting moments, or that when you know everyone to some extent either has it or has had it, you back yourself because you've got experience, you've got skills, you've got relationships and a network in the industry. And to people listening who might not have that network and think, "Oh, I'm never going to get it," the only way you will ever get anything helpful is just to start. You know, allocate some time to establish a new relationship with someone in the industry, because what I found, people are going to say yes. I ask people about the podcast all the time, or when people ask me, I've helped other podcasts get set up that technically competition. I don't care. I'm going to help. And it's the same as if you're listening to this, you don't have the same network you have, Rob. It's surely they've just got to start, right?
100%. Yeah. And you know what? It's like the only reason that I find it easier to deal with imposter syndrome now is that A, I found a name for it. B, I've got 20 years of winging it to know that I still feel like I'm winging it, but that's okay because it's working so far. And 20 years later, it's working. I do feel, having been closer to a lot of people, that a lot of people are winging it, and that's okay too. I don't think it underestimates my capabilities. I think it's good to be honest about it and be truthful about it, because it helps other people. But I do kind of, the relationship piece that you mentioned about mentorship and the way that's so good in our sector. And there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that kind of don't have 20 years of experience behind them to be able to be confident in striking out and having a go anyway. I think I still refer back to a piece of advice that a guy who mentored me through one of the contact centres that I mentioned earlier, when I was going through the kind of whole becoming a manager and the secondments and all that kind of stuff. So the Mike Healy, a guy with a name drop, he probably won't be listening, but it doesn't hurt in case he does. He gave me a really strong piece of advice that I've always carried through, and I always talk to people about it. And it's about managing your toolkit and keeping it full. So he likened it to every time you learn a lesson and every time you have an experience and you come out the other side of it with either something that you've achieved or something you've learned, that put it in a toolkit and do it in your head. Actually pretend you're putting that new thing that you've learned or that new experience you've got, and remember to put it in that toolkit, because by doing that little process, that toolkit gets fuller and fuller. And the more full your toolkit gets, the more confident you become in your own abilities. And if you don't remember to do that, it's very easy just to go on, keep going, and forget that all that stuff you're accumulating along the way that's got so much relevance and importance to your abilities and what you're capable of doing, that if you don't keep a track of it, you don't reflect on it, and you don't make sure you remember to have confidence in it, you won't succeed as much, because you'll always be at the beginning of that winging phase, because you're not keeping a track or a record of your achievements. And I think that would be the biggest piece of advice I'd give to anyone who's starting out on this journey, because that toolkit's only as full as you keep it, and you'll only remember to do that if you consciously go and put stuff in it.
I love the visualization. I think that's for me straight away. I was just thinking, right, if I go back to when I was first a team leader or first a contact center manager, the first time we devised an induction plan. Okay, take that and put that in the toolkit. Then we did incentives, take that and put that in the toolkit. I love it. I love it. Why haven't I thought of that sooner?
It's a simple thing, isn't it? It's so
Lovely.
simple.
Yeah, it's great.
I certainly wouldn't have had the confidence to do half the stuff I've done with that layer of imposter over the top of it to try and break through that without having my tool bag along for the ride, you know. And these are the subtle things that you pick up, that hopefully everyone has someone who shares stuff like this with them. Back in the day, there wasn't two guys chatting on a podcast where however many people can come and listen to it who could pick these tips up. You had to be fortunate enough to have someone invest time in you and share these things with you and help you do that. Fortunately, that's been the case for me, and I've been very lucky in that respect.
Can I just ask you something about the consultancy that you did? You know, you mentioned the number about going in. You must have gone in, been exposed to, spoken to like 100 different contact centres.
Yeah, I stopped counting at 100. Yeah. And genuinely, I had
to. Did if you could distill? Here's the question then. You can only give one or two bits of advice in terms of what were the things that you encountered the most, and what were the standout two things that were common across all of those interactions?
You mean in terms of where they're doing things right, what they're focusing on?
Right, yeah, right or wrong. Which, you know, in terms of you have to share from all of those times that you interacted. They went, Rob, would really like you to do X, Y, Z, and you went in. The top two things that you found, either good or bad in that, and then again that would help people understand how to overcome it, right?
Yeah, of course. So I'd say the businesses that are smashing it, that are doing well, are the people that have an equal focus on both their customers and their people. So a lot of the time you get companies that are all about the customer or all about their teams. If they crack it and they get it right with both, they're the ones that nail it all the time. And when I say that, I mean in terms of whether they're providing customer experience or doing sales or whatever it is. Focusing on your people as much as your customers gets you the best results. You can't have one without the other. It's yin and yang. It is what it is. But there's a lot of companies that don't get that mix right, and they're scratching their head as to why, they're taking all this customer feedback and they understand exactly what the customers are unhappy about, but they're failing to make improvements in that. And it's, well, because you're not looking after your people at the same time. They deliver that impact, they deliver that effect on your customers. So if you don't look after them as much as you look after you can't have one without the other. So that'd be, I'd say, where everyone who succeeds, the strongest operations are the ones that do both very well.
Love it. Love it.
Where negative, something negative. It's not often I'm short of words. As you'd probably be able to tell.
It could be another positive or something that you just thought, there's a lot of similarities here.
Got mind blank. Just gone completely mind blank for a second there.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking that I thought was interesting from when you spoke about that kind of consultancy as well was around the candidate experience. So what you came up with that then led to this sort of ongoing success. What tip would you share from that in terms of what should people be doing when they're looking at that onboarding process?
It's not about just getting back to people and communicating with people. It's about the quality of those exchanges that you have. There really has been a kind of poor quality approach that high volume recruitment has suffered from in the past, and I think it's struggled recently as well with the pandemic and the whole kind of the sheer number of people are trying to get into work, and the lack of communication, or certainly quality communication, and delayed communications. It's that's the key to not just nurturing the candidates in that process, but what that does is it delivers on the candidate experience for that particular role. It helps your brand in terms of your, the perception of what kind of company you are. But it means that other people will apply for jobs because they know they're going to get to hear from you. They're going to know that they got something to work from. We would always give feedback for candidates, and we would always work with companies willing to do that. It was part of our bit of a caveat thing, like, we'll only work with you if you do this, that, and the other. And one of those was the way we got feedback for candidates. And it's about having almost like a gap analysis. So if this wasn't for me right now, what is the thing that I need to be doing differently next time? Or is that something I'm missing, or is it something I've just failed to get across? If it's something I failed to get across, I know for next time. If it's something that I'm missing, I can go and plug that gap doing some other sort of work, voluntary work or whatever it is. But focusing on the communication with the candidates, making sure that the feedback is strong, but don't just leave feedback at that point. Use feedback in when you hire people as well. So onboarding people, give them the same sort of feedback around gaps in work. They might have got the job, but they still need to focus on X, Y, Z. Don't treat everyone the same. So induction. Don't have a one size fits all when you bring people in, because everyone's different. Everyone's got different needs, and you need to cater for everyone's requirements. But ultimately, it's about the communication around all of this. People, it's what we should be doing well. We're contact centres. It's what we do is communicate. So for that not to translate into the hiring process, it baffles me. And when we did what we did, and we built the processes around our recruitment approach, it drew on that. Everyone on the team was from a contact centre background. They'd all been on the phone. They'd all managed a team. These people were doing the assessments and the phone calls and the interviews with candidates. So they understood where they'd been in the candidate's shoes. They'd also been in the hiring manager's shoes, and they truly understood both sides, and they could be super empathetic to the clients they're looking after, as well as the candidates they were looking after. And that was very much by design. That wasn't a fluke. That was, why do we have such a poor approach by some agencies around throwing a load of money over it? Because they think it's easy to do this job, and it's not. It's one of the hardest jobs you can possibly do, albeit one of the most rewarding with the biggest opportunities. But it was, we treated it, we treated it correctly, and we focused on the quality side of it. So yeah, does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. That's great. I mean, and again, I think people will be thanking you for sharing that, because it's really important, and it's very relevant. You mentioned Martin Hill Wilson and doing some work with him. Is that something you can talk about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, so yeah. So fast forward 5 or 6 years from getting the job with the Bright team.
Should we go back to that though? Where did you go after that?
So Bright grew, and that was super successful. Matt sold the business. It was acquired by Sabio. So that was a great few years. That's kind of like, again, one of the best teams I've ever been a part of. And the going from a small handful of people in a room to 2 or 3 times as many staff to being acquired by a big business like Sabio, having won awards during that journey. I mean, we had to roll our sleeves up, and we just wore many hats, and it was great.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. That's having come from running my own business. There's obviously certain things I could bring to the table from that perspective. But yeah, so we got acquired by Sabio, and then I worked for Sabio for 3 years under their brand. Same boss, same team as we were at Bright, looking after a few new clients, obviously, and having our hands on a few more pieces of kit. and a part of a bigger group of people doing some pretty cool stuff. But yeah, so that was last year. It was lockdown. It was, everyone's dealing with lockdown in their own way. I was like, because of the imposter syndrome thing, I read a book last year. I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote it, but it's about working less and living more. Or you're not technically working less hours, but you're working less because you're doing something you really enjoy. That's what I kind of had when I was on the company, when I was part of the Bright team. I think I felt that was maybe something that was less the case under the Sabio brand, because we were part of a much bigger machine. And last year I was reading this book around how to get more balance, I guess, and how it was part of it's around imposter syndromes, and that's how I kind of came to read the book. And there's an exercise in this book. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me.
We can share it when we talk about the episode.
Yeah, I'll grab it and put it out there. But basically, there's an exercise in that book that it says to you, what dent are you going to make on the world? What impact are you going to have? What do you want to be able to do? What do you want to? It's not just about my CV. This is about bigger picture thinking. So there's lots of things you do with this exercise, and it takes a long time. But the outcome is ultimately you decide that you want to do something that's going to be kind of have a real impact, and it's going to be something that's relevant to you and important to you. So my outcome was, crazy as it sounds, was to basically improve the experience for every single person in this country. So I wanted to improve customer experience for every single person in the country. It's quite a big thing to try and achieve. But the reality was, if you chunk it down and you start with that great big ambition, then you start to come up with ways of achieving it. And only by starting to come up with those ways of achieving it do you start to do things that put you in a situation where you might achieve it. It's very similar to when you start out running a business, actually. There's certain similarities to that. But ultimately, my idea was that if I can get to work with the right clients, so big companies that everybody is a customer of at some point, so your telecoms companies, your utilities companies, your banks and financial institutions, those kind of big guys are providing a level of service. And if I can find a way of helping those to make improvements, I therefore am having a really positive impact on everybody in this country's customer experience, which I don't know whether it's purely down to COVID, but I think there's certainly a lot of people will agree that it's not the best right now. There's companies still at this moment harking on about COVID being the reason they can't answer the phones quickly. Which is
that's shocking. I mean, come on, people. No one buys it anymore.
The problem we have is that, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but we have technology, which I know a lot of reasonable amount about, that shows the art of the possible. So technology moves faster than people, and people move faster than companies. So technology means that people have to their expectations go up. They're starting to expect quicker interactions. If I tweet my problem, I expect someone to tweet back quickly, more quickly than if I email and I'll wait a little longer. If I phone in, I'll hopefully get through to someone, and they'll at least resolve my issue within a reasonable period of time. And if it takes them a little longer to answer the phone, but ultimately, technology moves things on very quickly. We have technology providers that are showing the art of the possible in terms of analytics and intelligence and CRM and lots and lots of sexy stuff. Yet that technology is moving faster than companies are. So whilst companies are buying stuff, they're not putting it into play quickly enough. They're not adopting it quickly enough, and they're not certainly getting it all right. They're only getting bits of it right. And what that means is customers are basically getting disjointed results and incorrect kind of channel shift because they got to focus on the thing that maybe isn't right for them. And then ultimately, because of the technology is making it possible, the expectations get so high, but then they're not the most, in my opinion, from my experience, a lot of the technology providers are not supporting their clients to get the most out of the investment, which is where the sticking point comes, because you've got all the potential, and people promote it and talk about it and go and sell it. But the reality of what's then delivered is there's a bit of a gap. Well, there's quite a gap in some cases, and I think that the opportunity is for that gap to be brought closer, and that will only be done by a whole lot of different people. It's not the technology vendors on their own, it's not their fault. It's the operations, the contact centers, all the different roles that play a part into this. You know, the experience that's being provided is not just by the person on the front of it on the phone, you know, or on the web chat or on the email. It's the massive team that is the organization and the supplier network that sits behind everything that results in that one-to-one interaction at that point in time. And if any elements of that group of people, that what you could call the big team that sits all behind that, if any of those things aren't right and aren't sweet, then you're going to let it down, and that experience isn't going to be as good as it could be. Might be better than some of the competition, but it won't be as good as it could be. So yeah, I think that's why we have the issues that we do. I think that that's why I kind of said to myself last year, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to go and have an impact on some big companies, and I want to be able to improve that experience by helping to plug that gap. And that was my kind of big ambition. Having read this book's got a lot to it. I better get the name of it, aren't I?
Yeah.
And I kind of then started to deconstruct that and work back from that end goal. I started to look where I was at the time, and I found that there was not the right opportunities for me to have that impact where I was at. I've been at Brighton and Savio for a 5-year period. That's the longest I think I've worked for anyone other than myself. I actually joked about that with my boss, Richard Beard, who again is another person who will go to the list of very important people along my journey. But you know, I found myself going, I need to do this. This is what I want to do. Otherwise, I'm not feeling like I'm achieving and having the impact that I want to have. And yeah, so I actually moved roles. There was a very, very exciting opportunity that came across my desk towards sort of back end of last year, which I was very fortunate enough to start at the beginning of this year, or at least I thought it was. But unfortunately, it didn't work out for me. So I guess sometimes it doesn't. And it was my choice for it to not continue, but I'm very decisive. I make decisions because I've learned to trust my gut. As much as I have had imposter syndrome for 20 years, I've also learned to trust my gut over those 20 years.
Yes,
an awful lot. And there are sometimes things that I on reflection, I think I should have picked up on a few warning signs and signals that I didn't pick up on, or maybe I didn't want to because it was so this is the, you know, on paper it was I was super excited. It should have been the best thing I've done, and it was almost like the natural next step along my kind of journey, and certainly to achieving the things I've set myself out to achieve. It's a bump in a road. You know, at the time, I'll be honest with you. Well, you know, actually, because I did ring you. At the time, my head went into a dark place. I really struggled with the fact that it wasn't what I hoped it would be and what I was expecting it to be. I blamed myself quite a bit for that at the time. Still do a little bit probably, but I think I made the decision to remove myself from that situation because it wasn't working out, and I think that was the healthiest thing I've done and could have done. And you know what? There's already green shoots starting to happen now. So this is the Martin Hill Wilson thing. So obviously we all know about the Sarah Everard murder back in March, and Martin Hill Wilson was posting some stuff on LinkedIn around how this is actually kind of business as usual for a lot of people. This is how people live their life in fear of these things. And I'm, you know, privileged enough nowadays to not have to even consider, you know, carrying my keys in my hand if I'm walking home. You know, I'm privileged enough to live somewhere where probably my wife doesn't need to worry about that either. She can walk home from the pub down the road and not have to worry about that. But a lot of people aren't, and I wasn't really aware of that. I only became really aware of that because of some of the stuff Martin was putting out there around the time of the murder. And it's, I won't go into too much detail, but as soon as you start to look at that and dig a little and go down that rabbit hole, that you actually realize just how not like my world a lot of people are living. And I guess it's a little bubble, isn't it? And I've got a daughter now. Alice is 5, going on 25, and she will be older soon. It's before I know it, she's going to be going to the pub. And I couldn't move from this picture of this terrible way of living for some. I mean, Sarah Everett was 33 and she's walking home from work and she gets murdered. I mean, in this country, I mean, for me, it's bonkers. I can't get my head around that. But for a lot of people, that's reality. That's the fear. And Martin's kind of message was, look, we can't. I can't, in my capacity today, sat here go, I can have an impact on someone who's going to go off and do something like that. What can I control over? What do I have influence over? And what can I make it? How can I make a difference? And Martin was very much about, he wants to influence organizations to make the way they operate and work and make their organizations, which they are in control of, a safer environment, safer places, safe for women. And that is basically, it's like, so this is a bit of a tangent, but New York, 1980s, absolutely dribbling crime everywhere. You've got crack epidemic going on. It's been 70s, 80s. It's been terrible for so long. It's an absolute peak. And then Mayor Giuliani, I think he was called, came in with this. Have you ever heard the broken windows approach?
Yeah.
So he came in with this broken windows approach, which would, for the younger people, it was basically focus on the minor crimes, focus on people who were not paying the fares on the underground. Before he came in, people were just running in there and using everything for free. And the approach is ideally tackle the small stuff, and it has a direct impact on the big stuff. And it really worked. I mean, they halved crime in the early 90s from what it was in the 80s. So coming back to the Martin Hill Wilson thing, his kind of I'm likening his approach to that. So what we're doing is we're looking at organizations and saying, when someone's having a conversation or having an interaction within your organization, you can control how that's done, and you can make sure that it's done in the right way. And you can make sure that we don't do a lot of the stuff that people possibly don't know they're doing, but are doing. So mansplaining, I see that and guilty of that. Not intentionally. I call myself unconsciously compliant, or I was. I'm now consciously compliant, hopefully, or getting there. But it's kind of a bit of an awareness piece. So it's kind of like, it's not a case of being woke or any of that silly stuff, it's not a case of doing it because it's trendy. It's a case of, actually, it's a problem. Didn't realize it was. Now I do. Kind of don't want my daughter in 10 years, 15 years time to have to be worrying about that stuff, because if we don't tackle it, if we don't improve it, it will be worse. And as a father, I can't not do something. So I kind of got involved in a couple of conversations that he was having. And as a result of that, I'm volunteering for this. I've built him a website. I've got a load of stuff behind the scenes working for him. And that's given me time so we're kind of, I have every other week, about an hour or so session with him, working on that, which is great. It's been good because he's benefited from me being able to do a couple of things behind the scenes for Brain Food. Nothing major, but a couple of things that I've been able to help him with there. And that's then turned into okay, so I don't need paying for that, but you can give me some of your time, Martin, in return for the stuff that I've done. And and he's helping me in this current period where I'm, I've not currently got a job. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. How do I achieve this improving everything for everyone objective that I've set myself? And he's helping me massively to be able to focus on that and coordinate on that. And we're bouncing ideas around and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost like I've stalked him and forced him to be my mentor. I don't know how if that'll be his interpretation. Hopefully not. But yeah, that's if you'd have told me that we'd be doing this 6-7 years ago, I'd have been like, wow, that's ace. It's funny that this is the thing that's come, the opportunity that's come out of the back of going somewhere that didn't work out. But I guess that's another message for people on here is, there's always, no matter how bad it is, I was literally, I found moments listening to this podcast, people won't believe it, but I had moments where I couldn't even talk. And I had moments where I was going to bed during the day. I was snapping at my wife and my daughter and just all the wrong stuff, and as soon as you look at yourself and you recognize those behaviors, you go like, this is just not, I'm not in the right place. So I removed myself from what I felt was the problem, and that was healthy. And for anyone who's in a dark place like that, doing that, it takes balls, because that's a job that pays well. For me, at least, it was the best, on paper, the best job I've ever had, but it wasn't worth it. So I'm now doing stuff that I never thought I'd be doing, and it's exciting.
But you've demonstrated it today, Rob. You're a great guy. You're a subject matter expert. This kind of faith in karma is going to see you right. I'm excited to see where you end up, and I'm sure people will want to get in touch with you. With the thing you're doing with Martin Hill Wilson, making organisations safe for women, I was pleased to be part of that very first meeting, and I know BPA Quality are right behind it. More power to you. We need to make the change in society so these things don't happen, and I think it's a great thing you guys are doing. You've been an excellent guest. Definitely want you to come back on, and we can pick some other topics that you're passionate about. And I'm guessing as well, you're more than happy for people to contact you to talk about projects, talk about anything.
Yeah, anything. Just reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very dead obvious. Find Rob Wilkinson on there. And find me, connect. I'll accept. Ask away. Check out my posts if there's anything on there that's useful. Great. The one thing I'd like to leave with, though, just going back to kind of my pre-call center career, was that I was in a pretty poor place in terms of not being able to find my own kind of space and have somewhere to live. So I'm also supporting at the moment a charity called Beam. So this is really close to my heart. It's basically using technology for good. I'm all about technology, but these guys are basically doing crowdfunding for homeless people in London. It's fantastic. If you get a chance to check it out, just have a look at what they're doing. So that's Beam, BEAM. It's a really interesting startup, and I'm sure it's going to go places. I'm supporting them with a contribution, and I'm talking about what they're doing every chance I get, and on LinkedIn and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it just obviously coming from where I come from, it's quite close to home, that one. So yeah.
No, by all means, and we will drop all the details in the post, and please do check it out. We'll put it in the podcast right up. But Rob, thank you very much for coming on. And
no, thanks for having me. Yeah. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
See you, Rob.
See you. Bye.